Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Unsank podcast, the podcast that is all about staying afloat in the rocky waters of life. Today, I'm here with my amazing guest, Marie, who's here to talk about all of the healing things and microdosing and how it can help you. So, it's going to be an amazing episode, and let's jump right in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Unsank podcast, the podcast that's all about staying afloat in the rocky waters of life. I'm your host, Lex, and I'm here to help you overcome whatever life throws your way. Each episode, we'll be discussing a new topic, from healing trauma to building confidence and rising above the waves, all with the goal of helping you become the badass you were always meant to be. So, if you're ready to take control of your life, then Unsank Pod is the podcast for you. Now, let's dive right in because we have some sailing to do.
Yay! I'm really excited to be here. So thank you for reaching out and asking me to.
Yeah, of course. I'm so excited to have you here. This is going to be so much fun. So, what got you into healing and microdosing and all of those amazing things?
Whew, I feel like that's a loaded question. My earlier life, essentially, like a lot of people, I went through a lot of hardships growing up. I lost my father when I was 10. I lived in an environment where I constantly felt unsafe, just where I grew up, just because of the people that I was around. I had a relationship with my mom that was very codependent. And because of all those things, I was diagnosed with things like ADHD, depression, anxiety. I often had panic attacks. I would wake up every morning feeling sick to my stomach and often throw up every single day, basically as a teenager. And I just had no idea what was happening. Nobody ever said the word trauma to me. Nobody asked me what's happening in your life. They just gave me these labels and told me to take medication. So I took Adderall, I took antidepressants, I took anti-anxiety medications, and just none of that really felt right to me ever. Just never felt like anything was really helping that much.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. Adderall is like really bad for you. So, yeah, I think the natural route is like always the best.
I will say that Adderall, like, it was amazing. I will say when I first took it when I was 15, it was like the clouds parted and like I saw a different reality when I first took that dose. And so I understand why people take it, because for me, it really did show me that there's a different world that I hadn't seen before. But like the cool thing about it was that I realized it's not something I want to be dependent on pretty early on. Like when I was 19, I realized that. And I think just having that medication, which like medication can be a tool, but doesn't have to be the end state, showed me that there's a different reality I can live in, and I don't need that medicine to give that reality. Like I have that within my body to begin with.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool that you came to that realization. How did you get to that point in your mind, realizing that you could do it like all yourself and whatever? Did it just pop into your head or
I think
what?
that there's a part of me, and I like, this is like so I'm a therapist by trade. I've been doing this for 10 years now. I'm licensed. And everything that happened to me got me into this healing world. I think you just become what you needed as a human being naturally. And now I get to do coaching with other entrepreneurs, which is my passion, specifically people with ADHD, to help them pursue what they love without like pittering out, basically, without burning out and doing that. So I think there's always been a really stubborn part in me that just was like, there's got to be something different. Like I was just saying this to a client, actually, I'm constantly questioning reality. Like I'm a rule
Mhm.
breaker. I would say that I only follow rules if I think that they make sense. And
Yeah,
the people that I surround myself with.
yeah. I finally got to that point too, where I was like always a rule follower when I was a kid. And then I realized like not every rule needs to be followed. You can like work around it in some places. And sometimes it's really helpful to not follow the rules and think outside the box and do different things than would be the norm. And yeah, that's really cool.
Exactly. So I think like it's not just me, like we heal through connection, and I can name like at least 5 to 10 people in my life that helped me understand these things, that I could think outside the box. So specifically my husband, who's also an entrepreneur, he helped me question things specifically about my family, that I was like, oh, like just seeing how his family was with each other. I was like, oh, that it's not normal to have an elephant in the room constantly and like to feel on edge all the time with your family members. No, for me, it was just like normal.
Yeah. No, I feel that. Yeah. For me, I don't have ADHD, but I grew up with anxiety.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like just, I don't know, like trying to get my brain to chill out or calm down or not be anxious all the time. And I don't know, like my family, I like to think my family is like pretty normal. I had a pretty normal childhood. It wasn't really until up into my 20s when I dated my ex that shit started going crazy. And he had a big influence on me because he's definitely not a rule follower. He would do anything but follow the rules. And there's a lot of drugs, but it was really cool because he was really big into like manifestation. And I like have seen him manifest some crazy shit. And he's not a good guy, but he's very like powerful, I guess you could say. And so like that kind of made me question of just, oh wow, you can not have a job and still find a way to support yourself, or like you don't have to live in this like box that society like wants you to be in. And
Yeah.
so now I'm trying to meld the two of just like society and like the more creative aspect of it, like making life your own thing and like doing whatever you want. And but yeah, I like started doing drugs or whatever, and so but found quite a fondness for them. Now I really only smoke weed, but I don't know, drugs are cool. It's fascinating the stuff I've read about researching different ways that they can help you heal and stuff. That's super fascinating to me. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
psychedelics have changed my life, hands down. Like
Yeah. It's
get my life pre and post psychedelic. There's a clear distinction of the difference of who I am. Yeah.
yeah.
The
How'd
first,
you get into all
a friend. Like I say, everything is connection and feeling safe with people. And because I had started to feel safe with myself, I think I started to draw people in about 10 years ago that were more aligned with my values, because I just love people and I love helping people and I love connecting with others. And before that, I was drawing in people that would leave me. And
that?
I look back at that now, and that's because I carry like a huge abandonment wound that I've been healing. And so when you carry something like that, which is what I help my clients work through and get pull back the curtain and see, if you carry a wound like that, which most of us do, because it can just mean that somebody didn't show up with you in the emotional way that you needed them to, you're constantly going to project that you're not worthy or you don't deserve that type of love that gives you what you need. And then you're going to attract people that'll leave you, essentially. And so I started to feel worthy, I guess you'd say. And I attracted people that also felt that way about themselves. And one of them was a very good friend of mine, one of my best friends now. And through the years, she just started to sprinkle things about how she lived her life. And
Yeah.
I was very resistant at first because I grew up Catholic and I went to Catholic school. And I can distinctly remember like sitting in health class, like watching a video about like, if you take LSD, like you'll see a hot dog screaming at you. These weird videos they would show us. And I was like, just, I had to do so much deprogramming. And a lot of that deprogramming just came from her helping me feel safe by giving me information of what they actually are and how they actually are used and how she uses them as a tool to better herself. And so she helped me feel safe enough that my husband and I actually went out to where she lives in Kansas City with her partner and her boyfriend, because she's polyamorous. And her little tight-knit community of rock climbing people was about like 8, 9 of us. We had this amazing experience night that changed my life of about 8 hours of an MDMA trip together. And
Nice.
it was the first time in my life where I truly started to love who I was. I remember looking in the mirror that night and saying to myself, like, why are you so hard on yourself all the time, Marie? You're so hard on yourself. And I just got like chills saying that because your body is always talking to you. And I just recognized that, I guess during that night, which is really cool, my body would just take these really deep sighs. Like I'd be talking to somebody and I just do this dramatic sigh out of nowhere several
Yeah.
times. And I was like, I was really cued into that. And just because you're so present on this drug. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I don't think I breathe enough in life because I was somebody with so much anxiety. And
Yeah.
that's the same year where I found Stephen Porges and Deb Dana and took a training with them on polyvagal theory, which is the foundation of the nervous system and how it works. And
Wow.
everything started to make sense then. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So how do like mushrooms and stuff affect your nervous system, and how does like microdosing and everything help with that?
Yeah. So the cool thing is that what I realized, first of all, was that the nervous system, if you look at it, like dysregulating symptoms and like this physiological, what's happening and how that responds to, oh, you're feeling anxiety because your heart is beating faster and you're sweating or you have shallow breath. That's our interpretation of anxiety. All of those things mirror are like overlapping to ADHD symptoms and anxiety and depression. So much you can find in the DSM is rooted in trauma and intergenerational
Mm-hmm.
trauma and what your nervous system is expressing and what your brain is wired to do adaptively or maladaptively, because we're always constantly changing and adapting. But the thing is that we forget is that a lot of times we're going the other way of maladapting to things, behavior, thoughts, beliefs. And the cool thing about microdosing is that it starts to tug at those beliefs so you can see them for what they are and get curious about them. And through neuroplasticity, it's your brain becomes a little bit more malleable, so that microdosing is like that wedge that pushes the putty, which is like your brain, to start moving in a different direction. So like neurogenesis, like you're making new connections in your brain. Like I had a client once tell me that it felt like she could see one highway in her brain getting all like dusty and like trees, like vines going over it and like closing down. And now suddenly she had like this new super highway of this fast track belief system in herself that was brand new to who she was. Yeah.
Wow. That's so cool. That's so cool. So do you facilitate microdoses, or like how does that all work?
I started I started using microdosing about 3.5, almost 4 years ago now, for the first time with myself, because I almost died when I had my first daughter, Isabel, in 2020. And I had PTSD because of that experience. And I knew right away I had to help myself. So I hired a coach to do parts work, which is what I do with people, and tapping, as well as nervous system work on my own. And then that's when I got microdoses. And I said, I'm going to use all of this together and see what happens. And within 6 months, I didn't have PTSD symptoms anymore, which is pretty amazing.
Wow. That is really amazing.
And it just truly helped me. That was the same year I started my private practice business, which was one of my first really successful businesses that's brought in over 6 figures since starting it from nothing. And the next year I started the Somatic CEO, this coaching business that I'm so passionate about. And I don't think I've done that if I hadn't had those tools in my pocket to really help speed things along. And so I actually almost died again this year with my son as well. No more babies for me. And it was through that experience that it's like I almost, like the phoenix, kind of rose through the ashes again. And I found this new identity of, I don't care what people think about me. And I want to speak about mushrooms. And I don't care if people are going to think I'm weird or that I'm a bad mom because I take mushrooms as a mother. It actually makes me a better mother. And I want to share this with people. And I want them to see the magic of what it can do for them. And so I started to just talk about it on my platforms. And people were so curious. That's the funny thing about it. People were not like shaming me. Maybe I got a few comments here and there, but like most of it was so positive.
Yeah.
And that's where I created the program. And 2 months after Leo and being out of the ICU, I created Unleash CEO, which is my 8-week program, basically, that'll help what I call my wolves of my avatars of my entrepreneurs who are ready to jump into connection, that are ready to stop feeling like they're going to fuck things up, that are ready to like get rid of energy leaks, things that are holding them back, that are tired of feeling judged and just want to be who they are. And so what microdosing and what somatic parts work and everything I do combined is really helping humans and CEOs just show up as who they are, become self-led, because that is where the money's at. That's how you have fun in life. That's how you create like anything you want.
Yeah. Wow, that's so neat. Wow. That's so like cool that you are doing that and that you just don't care what people think. I feel like that's how we should all live our lives, is just do what we think we should do and not care about like what other people think, and just do it. Because like I love mushrooms, I've done them before, and like I think they're super cool and like helpful, and I always feel a lot more confident, when I do them, and like more self-assured, and
Confidence
so when I found you
yourself.
and I found out,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Confidence. Like I just had to like chime in here, was a C of self. And that's part of the philosophy I follow, is that there are 8 C's of self, according to Richard Schwartz, who's the founder of Internal Family Systems. And when you do any type of psychedelic, and I know that this for MDMA, I think it's like, I forget the exact number, but like they did a study on this when they did MDMA with people. I think it was about 60 or 80% of the participants started to talk in parts work, the stuff that I do with people, naturally, without knowing anything about the approach, because it's so intuitive in us. We're constantly saying there's a part of me that feels this way, or a part of me that like believes this, because there are so many adaptive parts of you from trauma that are trying to make sense of the world, trying to protect you, trying to run the show for you so that you don't get hurt, which are like usually younger versions of you that are stuck in a different time period.
Yeah. I definitely noticed that. Like I'll talk about that. There's an unhealed part of myself that has like PTSD and all this trauma, but then there's the other part of me that like is healed and does the podcast and does all these amazing things and stuff. And so then like when I feel like the unhealed version of myself or whatever come up, I'm like, no, just like, if you were healed or whatever, like how would you approach this, or what would you do if you weren't like dealing with this stuff? And then I just try to act from a place of that instead of the other. But yeah, mushrooms definitely help. And there are things that definitely make that a lot easier, because you don't get in your head and
Stories
sabotage yourself, kind of.
Yeah, the stories we tell ourselves. I think that's the coolest thing. The first experience I had with microdosing was that I was like folding laundry, like right over here, and my husband and I got into some silly fight, and I was like in my head going through the fight, and like then all of a sudden I heard this part of me go, maybe it's okay to like just drop it. And then I was like, other part of me was like, oh, okay, so maybe we'll just drop this. And I was like, okay, so we're just gonna drop this. And then like I just felt like this like weight just drop off of me, and I just like on with my day. And as we are just find ourselves, like I see some of my clients just finding themselves in so many stories like, oh, what's the right way to show up in my business? And I'm like, no, man, there is no right way to show up in your business. It's just whatever is your way. Because even if you make a mistake, like that's your opportunity to learn. But if you're feeling that way, it's usually because you're operating on a sense of I'm a failure. And I see that a lot of people believe that because they're trying to constantly please a mother or father who didn't give them what they needed. So they need to constantly get good grades or show up in a certain way to get their needs met, to have that love met. And that projects onto their business everywhere, which is so fascinating to me. But humans are amazing.
Yeah, humans are really fascinating. I feel like the deeper you go into the rabbit hole of like healing and trauma and everything, the more you learn. Like it's just such a fascinating subject. Like neuroplasticity is just so cool. Like I remember when I first left my abuser and I was like starting to heal or whatever, so many people were like, oh, you'll never heal yourself. You'll never be able to fix this. You're just gonna be like this forever. And this is just what you are now. And it pissed me off. Honestly, like, how dare you just tell me I'm broken? Fuck you. And
It
it
pissed a
made
part of
me
you
want
off.
to do
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. Which is
Yeah.
great.
And just like, no, we're gonna research this, we're gonna figure it out, we're gonna heal. And I'm not gonna allow this to like be my story of just you went through this trauma and now you're just broken forever and you're just screwed. And I don't believe that. I've never believed that. Like something inside me was like, no, that's not real.
Yes.
That's not real life. That's not true.
And
so I went down this whole rabbit hole.
Oh yeah. When you said something inside of me, what I want to say is that was probably like the real you, like the self of who you are. Like she's the one that knows what's up. And people always get these inclinations. Oh, that's the thing I want to do. Or actually, I want to do it this way. But then they sabotage themselves, like you said, on going a different direction because they haven't yet healed the protective parts of them. And the protective parts of them still steer the ship to protect them, to keep them safe. When really it just prevents you from living in reality, like living your experiences, like feeling gratitude for your life. Like I wake up every day and I honestly feel gratitude to get to do what I do now in my business. But I used to operate from a fear of a place of survival, like, oh crap, like I got to wake up and I have to look at all this crap that I have to do for my business. And it's only till I get all this stuff done, which is going to take forever, then I'm actually going to make money in my business. And if I'm not making this money, then that means something about me. But
yeah,
no, that's a story you're telling yourself. And you're actually telling yourself that your values it's not about making money. It's not what you signed up for. You did this because you like helping people. So if you're providing value and helping people every day, you're already winning. And it's that energy that'll actually get the people you want to work with coming in the door, which I've learned.
Yeah. I remind myself that all the time because I'm just like a little baby podcast and I haven't made any money at it yet. But I'm just like, my goal, like when I started this was just to help people. Like I felt so lost when I started healing that like I wanted to start this to help other people that feel lost so that they're like, I could just be like, here's some resources and some help and you guys aren't alone. And people have already come up to me and been like, you've helped me and stuff. And so
see, that's amazing.
I'm doing my job. Even if I don't make a penny, I'm doing my job. So
yeah. And even if you don't, let's say you don't make anything from this, like what's going to come through this? That's the thing. Like you're giving invaluable like resources, time, energy to people through this, which is valuable. And like people recognize that when you're being authentic. That's the thing, because that's what my program really helps people do is be authentic and all the work I do with my clients. Because if you're authentic, like I had a client say the other day, I feel like when I show up on discovery calls, I'm not who I am because I'm in my head about what needs to happen. And then I sync all of them. And she realized through the call, it's because she's thinking about, oh, I need to make this sale happen. Sorry, that's my son. I need to make this sale happen. And if it doesn't happen for me, that means I'm a failure, which doesn't align again with her values. Like, no, man, go into the call because you want to help this person. You want to give them value. And if you do that, that's going to be amazing. And if they don't want to work with you, maybe they're not right for you. Maybe it's not their time, or maybe it's not like a good match. And all those things are good to know. Or maybe it's, I get to learn how to be better at sales. Like it's all like growth and none of it's bad.
Yeah, totally. That's how I look at life a lot. It's like everything happens for a reason. And I don't know, I've seen so many synchronicities in life that I feel like everything, like there's no way that everything doesn't happen for a reason. Like just weird things will happen. And it makes more sense that there is meaning than that there is no meaning. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just being able to live in the moment. And that's what psychedelics and microdosing, even a baby amount of psilocybin will help you do, is just be more in your presence, because then you get to be who you are. That's when I realized, oh, I could put on my rainbow onesie and like some jewels on my face and be on my Instagram and have a great time. And I can love that. People love that because that's me like being who I am. Like, and I don't have to feel bad about it or try to hide that part of me or think I'm like a bad mom because I like go to festivals. No, it actually makes me a better human and a better parent because I'm constantly trying to self-actualize, just be the best person I can be.
Yeah. That's how I feel about my DJing thing. It's just that's me. I feel like in my truest like self of just like music and having fun and that whole thing of just that's me like self-actualizing. Like I got to this point where I'm like, if the world is matrix and stuff and I can do whatever I want, like it's a dream, there's no consequences, like you can do whatever you want, what would I do? And it one was the podcast, like doing this, and then the other thing was DJing.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing it and it's actually happening. I'm like, wow, amazing. Crazy.
You like instead of saying like to yourself you couldn't or listening to the people in your life that told you you can't, you decided
Yeah.
actually I can't do these things. Like you took that roadblock out. You removed it. And that's what microdosing does. It's I was just blocking myself from showing up for what I want.
Yeah.
Really the sky is
Totally.
the limit. There's nothing you can't do. That's what I've
It's
realized.
so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so neat. I don't know, life is like a really cool thing. I feel like I'm on the other side of it. I've seen such darkness and now I get to see the light and make
Yeah.
life really cool and fun and do whatever I want. And such a much more fun way to live your life and to just enjoy it more. And like,
Yeah.
yeah,
You have to be part of the suffering to see the light.
yeah,
I think that's one thing I will say is like to everyone out there is that psychedelics are not a quick fix. They will not fix you.
mm-mm,
They will not make everything better. Sometimes people say to me, I feel more anxious when I take psilocybin or whatever. And what the cool thing about mushrooms is, even in a baby amount, is that they're called dark secrets, is that mushrooms will bring out your dark secrets. And so they'll bring out these parts, like anxiety is a protective part. And it was for me, for sure, like a big part that ruled my life.
yeah,
That said, you have to keep going, you have to go faster, you have to constantly look ahead. And that's also part of my ADHD is like constantly play 10 steps ahead to keep myself safe.
yeah,
That like when my anxiety showed up, I didn't understand psilocybin at first. And I was like, oh, I shouldn't feel like this. This is a bad trip. That's why people say they have bad trips. I shouldn't feel anxious. But once I realized I'm always in control and that my body needed to feel that way, and I just allowed that anxiety to like wash through me and be there with it and accept it and understand it and befriend it, that I don't show up with that part ruling the show anymore. It's part of me, but it's not the ruler anymore. And so I will say that like psychedelics, sometimes you'll have experiences that'll be darker that you have to like, I had one experience this year. I took a macro dose and I had a dark experience because I had to grieve so much of what I lost with my dog passing this year. She was my soul dog right before I went into the ICU. And there was just so much grief and survival in me that had to come through. And the next day, I probably had one of the best days of my life that I'll always remember because I
oh,
like
nice.
myself just to sit with the suffering of it and to like work through it instead of resisting it, because that's a huge part of the healing journey. And I think that's why a lot of people get scared, but stick with it, because if you do, like the other side is magical. And like we forget about that side too, that it like the healing journey is incredible of what you're going to find out about yourself and how cool you really are.
Yeah. That's been one of my favorite things of just, I don't know, like instead of just running away from the pain and not wanting to feel like actually sitting with it and feeling it and embracing it. And then just like, I don't know, it's brought up not only things about, because like when you're abused, it's a lot about like, I don't know, I think some part of you allows it or resonates with it. And because I've always come from a place of I'm not good enough. I have all these issues. So when, he would say those things to me and stuff, I'd be like, yep, that checks out. Like the math on that checks. And so for me, one of the big things about healing is just like getting out of that mentality of not thinking I deserve those things. It's like actually working with like my confidence and stuff and actually thinking that I am cool. And I've had a really good mushroom experience, like where I finally let go of that like insecurity and stuff. I was like, no, man, I'm fucking cool. My body is cool. I'm cool. Everything is cool, dude. It's all good. And yeah, that's been really positive of just like actually being able to look at the mirror and love myself and feel good about who I am and like how I look. And because I've always been really critical of my body and picking myself apart and just that whole thing. And I don't know, I think it's cool. Like if you're willing to take the journey and like really sit with it and ask yourself where certain things are coming from within yourself, like where did they come from? And then get to the root of it and just be like, nah, it doesn't have to be like that. You don't have to live your life thinking that you're not good enough or that you're fat or like whatever. You can just like love yourself and you can just like really just feel it. And that's, I don't know, like what you were saying about deprogramming, like slowly getting the programs out of your brain. And it's so fascinating to me. I just love it. It's so amazing. It like opens up your mind, I feel like.
Oh yeah, it makes you open. That's the thing. And then the thing is, though, people don't want to be open. That's a deterrent. People don't want to be open because then they have to be vulnerable, and they don't want to be vulnerable because people have hurt them. So it's a cycle. And so like you really do, I would recommend anyone wanting to try this, make sure that you're in a safe space. Doesn't mean like someone's going to physically hurt you, but that you feel safe in where you are. Like that's why they talk about set and setting. If you ever try these things, make sure you know what you have, be very safe and clear on that, and making a space for yourself that's very safe so your body feels safe in who you are. And that's why I actually created a course that teaches my clients how to master their nervous systems, because if you don't build that foundation of feeling safe within yourself, it can make the journey of microdosing feel a lot crazier, because when you get into these parts of you that are very wounded, you're going to close up if you haven't initially spent that groundwork of just, oh, like what you're saying, I'm feeling my body. That's a big step for people, just to feel, where do I feel anxious in my body? And just to notice that and put a hand there and breathe through that and allow yourself to sit with that. That's a huge step for people to do that. I know it was for me. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by any of this, I would just say that it's all baby steps. Like for me and my journey, I'm only where I am now because the first thing I think I ever started to do was put a hand on my chest and notice how my body was feeling and take a second for myself. And I still do that. And I'll still put a hand on my body and I'll still tell myself I am safe. And I think when I started doing that in the beginning of my journey, I didn't believe that. But I started to believe that because my body started to believe that over time.
Yeah, I do that too. Cause like I'll get anxious and stuff and it's always in my chest and I'll feel like I can't breathe. And so doing that and just telling myself to breathe and like actually taking a moment to get deep breaths in. Cause like when you're anxious, you're just like, and not breathing properly. And so just like slowing yourself down and just breathe. It's okay. Whatever's going on, let's just breathe and we'll figure it out. Like maybe you don't have all the answers, but at least breathing calms you down enough, I think, to like, so you can figure out the answers. Because when you're in that heightened state of like adrenaline or whatever, you're not thinking clearly. And if you just slow yourself down and reel yourself in just enough to be like, oh, okay, that's the answer, and move.
Totally.
You know?
And if that freaks you out, there's so many things you can do to regulate. You can like hug yourself. You can put a blanket over yourself. You can put your hoodie on. Like just do what you can, hug your dog. There's so many things you can do. There's no right way to do this. You can start singing. You can get in the shower. There's a million ways to regulate, to feel safe. And so just do, if you feel really stuck, just do what works for you first. And that's where things like, because healing your nervous system doesn't mean, again, like you're fixing yourself, like psilocybin. It means that you're building capacity for suffering, for joy, for peace, for all of these things that we all feel in life. You're building the capacity to hold it all.
Yeah.
And that's priceless.
Yeah,
if you can do that as an entrepreneur, that's
is.
amazing. Because entrepreneurs have to have resiliency, have to have a capacity to hold space. Yeah. Because
Oh yeah.
it's not easy.
Yeah.
There's no roadmap. Nobody tells you this is the thing you're supposed to do today. It's just like all self-led,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. That's what I've been learning with this podcast. It's like, because when I started it, I didn't know crap about podcasting. I
Yeah.
just knew I wanted to start a podcast. And so
Yeah.
I've been like just researching what
Yeah.
equipment, how do you do this? How do you even edit a podcast? Like all that kind of stuff. And like it's definitely all self-led, but it's been really cool, like learning everything. I feel like, I don't know, more intelligent. I have a new skill that I know now, and that could open up new doors. And like you never know, like where things are going to take you, and like knowledge is power, and at the very least I get to build cool relationships with the people I have on my podcast. Like you're super cool, and
Amazing. And it's like, where are these connections? That's what life is all about for me. It's connection, you know,
100%.
and it's what we can
Yeah.
heal things in each other because we not only bring each other's wounds out, but we also bring each other's brilliance out too. The best parts of ourselves are brought out when we're like aligned with one another and we feel safe to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're giving me a safe space to talk about something I'm really passionate, and that makes me feel really grateful. And because I feel grateful, I'm able to carry that on the rest of my day and give that to my children and give that to my partner. It's a ripple effect. And it's only because
Yeah.
you had the courage to reach out to me, to ask me. And it's only because you had the courage to start your podcast. So it's like all these things that don't seem big are actually really big.
Yeah. I'm realizing that. I don't know. I feel like one day I'm going to look back on this and be like, I'm so glad that I
Yeah.
did that. Like I had the courage to start a podcast and put myself out there and do all this stuff and talk about like some of the darkest times of my life, which people will come up to me and be like, I can't believe you did that and put that on the internet. Like I could never be that brave. I could never, like that's the bravest thing I've ever seen. Like it needed to be said, so I'm saying it.
Courage is another C of self that we tap in my program. It's like courage is not without fear. Courage means you have fear, you acknowledge that part of you, but you just do it anyways. You just do it anyway.
Exactly. Yeah,
Because
feel the fear and do it anyway.
yeah, you align with it. Like I've shared some like really vulnerable things on my podcast as well. And it's like sometimes, or maybe on my Instagram or whatever. And it's, oh, sometimes I get this like retraction of my nervous system, like contraction saying, oh, Marie, why'd you do that? But then I'm like, the retractions have gotten like fewer and far between now. It's, I know why I did that. I know exactly why I did that. There's a purpose here. I don't really care what anyone thinks about it. Again, it's just if that helps one person that sees it, that's great. That's what I want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
No, that's just so cool. You're based in Oregon as well, correct?
Yes. I love Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love Oregon too. We have a great healing community, great microdosing community here, and like everything. I don't know. I feel like people in Oregon are so much more accepting of that kind of thing. Like I grew up in Arizona and people would not be down with the sickness there. But people here it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you do mushrooms. Cool, me too. Like
Yeah, I know. And yeah, I feel like just again, you're attracting that energy. There's no place that I'd rather live than where I live right now. I've definitely built my community of my neighbors and friends and just who I want in my intermediate family. And it's just all because I took a risk on things. I took a risk on myself. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs post about, oh, if I played it safe, if I played it safe. And actually, I have a bone to pick with that statement because saying that actually doesn't mean what you think it means. You take risks when you feel safe. And so I want to encourage people to focus on feeling safe because that is when you actually take risks in your life, is when you have that foundation within yourself that makes you unstoppable. Like at the end of the day, that like none of it matters because who you are. If nothing works out in your podcast or your business, it doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. At least you tried. That's the way I always look at it too. Is at least I put myself out there and I tried. That at the end of the day is all that mattered.
Yeah. And where's that going to take you? That'll just take you to the next place. It's
so cool. I love it. Oh my God, that's so great. Where can people find you online and get your amazing coaching? information?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm always on the Instagrams. That's how we chatted for the DMs. They can email me. I can, give that to you in the show notes if you want as well. But the waitlist for Unleash CEO, my group program on using microdosing, is going to be opening soon, and there'll be plenty of bonuses to jump in on. I just ended another round and it went incredible. And it just brought me to tears on the transformation that happened for these women. So I'm ecstatic about that. And I'm really excited to welcome whoever's going to show up in this next round. So the waitlist will be open. And if that doesn't sound good to you and you want to work more one-on-one, I do have some couple spots open for one-on-one coaching that'll really just key in on you specifically as a person and what you're going through, what problem you're having in your business, and how we can solve that through subconscious rewiring. And yeah, that's about it.
Wow, that's really fascinating. I love it so much. Thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed it. I know you have to get going pretty soon because you have another client,
Yes.
but I'm very excited to have you here with us. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks for giving me space. And I really felt safe to speak here. So appreciate it. Yeah.
Sweet. Thank you. I appreciate it too. All right. Sweet. And then all of Marie's info will be linked in the description. And I love you guys so much. Have an amazing day. Thank you for joining us on this amazing episode of Unsank Pod. I hope that you found inspiration, healing, and the courage to rise above the waves of life. To stay connected and receive updates on future episodes, follow us on Instagram at unsank.co and unsank.pod. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at unsank_co. For additional resources and information, visit our website at unsankco.com. You can also find our episodes on popular podcast platforms such as Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, and many more. Before we part ways, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to all of you who have shared your time with us. Your openness and willingness to explore the path to healing have made this podcast truly special. Keep healing, keep growing, and keep spreading light to those around you. Take care, and remember to stay unsank.